We are going to be talking about something, I'm sure. I know exactly what we're going to be
This is
talking
our
about.
Halloween episode.
It
What's
is.
happening here?
The spooky.
Welcome to Liturgical Shenanigans, a Wayfolk Arts podcast, with your hosts, Hannah,
Phil?
Jackson.
And Maddie.
Welcome back, everybody, to Liturgical Shenanigans, the podcast.
The podcast.
The podcast.
The-
A Wayfolk Arts podcast. Thank you all for jumping back into the conversation this week. We are going to be talking about something, I'm sure.
This is our
I know exactly what we're going to be
this is
talking
our
about.
Halloween episode.
It
What's
is.
happening here?
The spooky.
The spookies.
And we want to acknowledge that Halloween is, to this day, and perhaps for all time, a controversial issue in churches. Particularly, we're talking about the American church here, right? But there are those, we were talking about the different kinds of things churches do with it, right? Like some churches just celebrate it. Other churches have trunk or treat.
Some churches refuse to acknowledge it.
Doesn't happen. I was reading something about a church that talked about it as Satan's birthday. Yeah. And that when we trick or treat, we're celebrating that. All kinds of really fun takes on it. We wanted to, though, ask the question, since it's a thing that's happening in the culture around us, is there a gift in it for us as opposed to like, let's ignore it or let's tell everybody that they're bad if they do it? Can we, like what Jesus does, right? Jesus looks at these things going on in the world around her, whether it's agriculture or anything, and saying, well, here's how this can help us understand the kingdom of God. And so we're curious today, what gifts are there for us in our culture's Halloween rituals?
Halloween just is a gift. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
Amen.
That's the podcast. Thanks for coming.
I'm just thinking, hallowed be your een.
Yep. And as a way of kind of like bringing us into the conversation and kind of giving us something to focus on / have our practice around and direct our conversation, Maddie, you wrote a piece last year, actually.
I did
around
on Halloween. I wrote an ode, which is the first and only time I have ever written an ode.
Ooh.
So I don't know that I did it correctly, and you get extra credit if you tell me what my pattern was. But yeah, I wrote an ode to my years spent yelling trick or treat. Because fun fact about me, I'm obsessed with Halloween. I used to think fall was my favorite season. No, Halloween is my favorite season. And some of that is the fond memories I specifically have of trick or treating and getting to dress in costume. So this is I wrote an ode to that. Like last week's podcast with Hannah's apple shenanigan, this is a bit more playful. So, I mean, you can engage this as seriously as you want. I guess if you want to slow down and prepare yourself. But I don't know. You certainly don't have to do that. It's just a fun ode. So I guess do what you need to do to hear this thing that I wrote for trick-or-treating. Oh, also, sorry. It's on our Instagram from last year. So if you want to read along with me, it's got some really bright graphics and obnoxiously orange-colored stuff. All right. We're going to read it now. Ode to my years spent yelling trick or treat. Scattered leaves crunch under pounding little feet, shrieks and peals of laughter in the jack-o'-lantern's glow, knock-knocks and ding-dongs to the tune of trick or treat, bowls of goodies crouched low. I remember nearly every early Halloween, a werewolf mask worn 4 years in a row, Mom and Dad leaving room for me to walk in between, taking a deep breath before marching up to the homes of people I didn't yet know. On the last year I spent singing for treats, those deep breaths were pulled tight by my gown's bow. the werewolf mask abandoned for the crown of a queen, and a desperate twist in my stomach because I hadn't wanted to go, longing instead to stay in with a movie and an excuse to scream. Oh, how I miss yelling, smell my feet, and running carelessly to and fro. That little girl who always thought that each Halloween was the one to beat. I wish she hadn't had to grow. I can't speak today. Rhyming things are hard to read.
It's true, and like
It's
meter
tongue
and
twister-
cadence.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's tongue twistery. I haven't actually
Mhm.
spent a lot of time with that piece since last Halloween, so that was kind of fun to read again.
In some ways, that sort of like sing-songy like cadence, I really love how that welcomes you back into like a childhood moment.
Yes, and that's I wanted to specifically do an ode for that. I thought it felt like a rhyming story or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, nice
Yeah.
and playful. Plus, it was playful for me because I've never written an ode before.
Yeah.
I think one of the really cool things about this ode is like it is focused on the child who's having the experience, but there's so much community named and brought into the experience, like both parents, but then also all it's something like the bowls of sweets crouched low, and I can just imagine all of the like older parents and grandparents coming to the door and being like, "What are you?"
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that also brings up warm memories for me of like that's just so much shared joy all across town because my town was really small. I was surprised that so much community came up as an image in that.
Yeah.
As I think about Halloween, like it is, in fight me on this, but it's the one day of the year that a neighborhood actually has. I mean, depending on some houses don't do it, right? But it's kind of an unconditional hospitality where it's where you go and you knock on someone's door that you absolutely don't know,
Right.
and it's totally normal to expect.
Yeah.
A treat, a gift. Yeah.
And it's lasted past like the scares of they're putting poison and razor blades in your candies
Right.
and drugs in your candy. Like it's continued to be well loved, and it even post COVID has been great. But I actually think I like Trunk or Treat
Sure.
because I feel like it extends the community driven celebrations. I also feel like sometimes trick-or-treating can be inaccessible to people depending on if they're socially nervous about going up to a stranger's door, or if it's too late at night for some families. I don't know. And when the church welcomes people into their parking lot, I just think you have a better, sometimes, you kind of know what you're getting, maybe a bit more than walking up to a random person's doorstep. You assume that it's going to be people at the church who are just excited. Like, you know that they're all excited to give candy to whoever comes.
I actually think of that. I love that. My take on Trunk or Treat has been the opposite, where
Interesting.
it allows people that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to give to kiddos.
That too,
Like
yeah.
the home I grew up in, if you got one, it was definitely someone who knew you and it was like a relative and they made the drive out to the house. No one's trick-or-treating at the last house on Hill Island Road. Like it's just, it's not happening. But at a trunk or treat, people who live maybe more rurally or whatever, and the fact that it's often a community, because this could be a fun conversation. The way we build community has changed. It's not usually a neighborhood anymore. It's maybe it's a church, maybe it's a workplace or something, but this allows people that do life together to come together and enjoy themselves as a community, or love on their kiddos and get a chance to see them in costume. And
Well, and actually my living community doesn't allow trick-or-treaters. Because it's considered a solicitor. What? That's so weird.
Candy.
soliciting candy.
Yeah. So that would be the only way I could participate.
Yeah. Go to a place and then you can do the fun whatever, decorate the thing, and at least you get to participate in this community ritual.
And dress up as an adult in a completely accessible way. Accessible. what's the word I actually want?
Excessive?
No. Yes, but no.
Acceptable?
Acceptable. Goodness gracious.
I'll take the points.
Not all adults feel like they can dress up. I mean, I do, but not all adults feel like they can dress up to sit at home. Whereas if you're having a themed trunk, you need to dress
Right.
up.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes lots of sense. It's so an additional aspect of this community thing for me, growing up, my parents were college professors in the college that they were professors at. Like if you lived in certain dorms on campus, those dorms invited, in particular, the children of college employees to come and do trick-or-treating in the dorms.
Oh, I love
You had to
that.
have like this little orange pumpkin sign that signified that like this was a door you would stop at, otherwise we wouldn't go into people's dorms. But that was always so much fun because there's so many dorm rooms, so you got a really great hall as a little one. But also, like, so many of those students, I was like, oh, I know you because you're my parents' students and you've been at my house before. And that I felt like was so formative for me and my understanding of what Halloween was supposed to be. That it feels kind of unique. Like not everyone grew up doing that, but that's what I think of when I think of Halloween trick-or-treating, is doing it in the dorms.
I also feel like Halloween allows I think I actually wrote this like in the description of the ode on Instagram or something like this, but different parts of you are invited to come out and play and be celebrated. And it feels not that at different times of the year weirdness isn't celebrated, but it is loudly celebrated during Halloween. And being into Halloween is suddenly cool. People come to you for ideas about costume. They expect you to be throwing the cool party. They ask you for horror movie recommendations. They ask if you're willing to go to the haunted house with them because they're interested this year and nobody else is and they want to try it. I mean, you as the person who is often the outcast in groups or throughout the rest of the year, you're suddenly invited into helping others enjoy this beautiful part of your world that everybody celebrates, which can also be annoying, right? Like all of a sudden everybody's on board with this thing. Where were you the rest of the year? But I wish every day was Halloween. I love it so very, very much. And it is also why, you know, as somebody who grew up in the church, it can be really disappointing to find faith communities that say how wrong something like Halloween is.
Yeah, because there's like this, it seems like conflation happening. I think you said, Phil, at the start, this like, you know, connection with it to Satan's birthday was the example that you talked about, or like there's this almost like narrative that's built up around it that seems to be disconnected from the actual practice itself, and especially what we've been talking about today of like this like really intense communal aspect. There's also the aspect of like, this was, you know, there is a ritual at this time of year in every culture because this is often a harvest ritual.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't do to just like cut yourself off from this part of the human experience and build this other narrative around it so that you can't engage it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that sort of like dissonances is what I've experienced in a lot of church circles around this particular day.
And harvest, which is another form of this, but also death. This is the season of death. You know,
because it is.
Yeah,
it's when things are dying.
Was it in this space we were talking about? I don't remember. Maybe it was this space. Maybe it was another one. But we were talking about favorite seasons, and someone said it's because you like the smell of rotting things. To me, was it? Yeah, I feel like it was Jackson, but I'm not sure. But yeah, fall, I love the smell of fall, and it's like detritus. Like you like plant corpses and whatever.
I once said my utopia situation would be perpetual fall, and I was thinking like, is it fall year round anywhere. And no, because it would have to be a space where something is, it's always dying.
Eternal death.
Yeah. And I long for that.
Not being dead,
But in the beautiful way.
dying.
Right,
Well, and
the
it's-
liminal space
Yeah,
between
the threshold.
It is the non-scary, beautiful circle of life celebration of death.
Well, and so that's, I mean, Halloween, you know, it's around the festivals of the saints, right? And so these are the days of remembering those that have died before. It is this liminal space where the living celebrate the dead, and it's very churchy. Like it's a long time church service ritual. There's some fun liturgies from the Catholic Church. A lot of them kind of went out of fashion in the early 1900s, but like, yeah, this idea that we get to celebrate and remember and live into and bring back into our conscious awareness those that have gone before. And I, you know, this is maybe a big jump, but with our like superhero costumes and whatever else we're doing, we're pulling up these stories that either say something about us or something that we enjoy, or maybe I'm dressed as a monster, but I enjoy these kinds of movies and stories and I want to share that with you. And it's this passing on of a thing that lives beyond me. I don't know. To me, that's a beautiful part of the ritual.
I love that, like, storytelling weaving into it then too, of like you get to tell these like kind of big narratives, but also like bringing in this facet of yourself, and also the like broader cultural stories that are being told as well. Again, the connection into community, like. What are the things that we see every time? We see werewolves every time. We see vampires every time. And we see all these
Witches and skeletons.
witches and skeletons and all, all sorts of things. So it's a chance to share it, and also a chance to be like, what are we sharing in?
Yes.
What are the narratives that we're all sharing together? How do they tie to our own individual stories?
Sexy
Also-
everything.
What?
Sexy everything. Sexy Crayola
Well,
crayons.
that's
true.
sexy-
But also, what, like, generationally, what stories are being
Yeah.
celebrated?
Yeah.
Because the Disney movie character shifts.
Sure.
It was Frozen and Moana for a while.
long time.
Long,
yeah.
that's true.
They held the line.
Yeah. I don't know what this year will be, actually, now that I've said that out loud. Is it still Frozen and Moana?
Yeah, I don't know.
But
Be interesting to
it changes depending on what's new and exciting, and then what remains, like you said, vampires and werewolves and wolves.
The werewolves.
Wolves. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and there's an interesting thing there that's playing in my head around masking, right? That in dressing up in costumes, that there's typically, maybe someone just grabbed whatever was left in the bargain bin, but usually people think about what they want to be. It's something they care about. It's something they want to talk about. And so there's a bit of a self-revelation in that. And to a degree, you're unmasking part of yourself by putting on this costume to show someone something about who you are.
And what you're interested in and excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Halloween. So I get really excited when church communities actually want to engage Halloween and also expand on it and make it even better. And honestly, I think that ways that churches, especially if they want to lean into the call to be more than just your building, or have your building be meaningful beyond Sunday morning worship, so an actual community space. If trick-or-treating, if your church is genuinely in a neighborhood that does trick-or-treating, consider opening your bathrooms to be a bathroom stop for families that have littles that have walked a long way and they need a bathroom and water, and consider having a communal meal before trick-or-treating. I just think sometimes we, as the church, I'm going to be really careful about how I say this. Hold on.
Don't let it fly.
I want to say something like we overemphasize the faith aspect. We try to Jesusify
Sure. Yeah.
everything inappropriately.
Evangel
sometimes.
all the
Yeah, there we
times,
go.
yeah.
There we go. There's a difference between asking the question of how does this contribute to kingdom building and how do I make this okay by putting Jesus's name on it. And I think the church can contribute to the existing traditions without feeling the need to overcompensate for the fact that they feel like Jesus is lacking. Being a space that is open to all and meeting needs that is kingdom building.
Yeah.
And I would actually name it's better kingdom building than if you felt the need to just scream Jesus into a microphone.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a beautiful way for community churches to contribute to the traditions of Halloween.
Jesus is there going like, guys, I'm already here. Like,
Could you let me in? I need to take a break.
People are inviting each other over and serving food to each other and just loving their neighbors. And I'm already here. Yeah.
And then also, like, have a costume drive because costumes can be really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So either people donating old costumes or purchasing new ones that people can come and look at and not putting an age limit on it.
Yeah.
So
Ooh, let's talk about that.
what?
Age limits on Halloween.
Everyone should be allowed to trick or treat, first of all. But no, like actually allowing everyone to contribute to the ongoing holiday and making it accessible for all. Yeah, I don't think there should be age limits on Halloween.
It is a bizarre, shamey thing we do, isn't it?
If there is particularly like if you're upset that a teenager is coming to your house for candy, what is wrong with you? I'm sorry. That's mean. I need to be less judgmental. What is your problem with that? Because
What's the deal with that, though?
That was mean of me. What's your problem?
with that, what's
With
the
that.
issue you take really with it? Because they could be making so many worse choices than coming to your home for the candy that you're already giving out for free.
Yeah, it's like why do we have to restrict playfulness to littles? Like Halloween is one of the few opportunities for the community as a whole to be playful together and to be excessively creative together. And it's sad that we don't that it's often not like we continue that together age-wise as a community. I definitely did trick-or-treat as a
Me too.
teenager, but it was only to houses of people that I knew.
Yeah.
Not so.
And mostly my teachers. It was like not the one time, but like at that point, parents don't need to go with me trick-or-treating. So like one of my friends was old enough to drive and like drove their family van and we would all pile in and then like drive to 5 different teachers' houses and like go and chat with them for 10 minutes before we went on to the next house. And it was strange and delightful. And there should be more of
Do you remember
that.
the first time, if there was a first time for you, that it was like I'm not invited into this anymore?
So I
I'm not welcome here
do
anymore.
because I was told that it was going to be my last year in 8th grade. This is your last year. You've this is when you have to stop because it's not socially acceptable. That being said, then my brother was born. And so I took him that was my contribution. I was the one that took him and I got a costume to match him and I took him trick-or-treating for all of his Halloweens.
Amazing.
Even my first year of college. Like they came to Michigan from Illinois so that I could take him trick-or-treating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it feels like, there are some degrees where the ritual ages with you. Like maybe people have Halloween parties and do different kinds of games and you can do that. And that's neat. But I'm going to pull back to our Santa conversation.
Whoa.
That's so interesting because I was sitting here also thinking about pulling back to our Santa
Hey, let's go. Let's see what goes.
conversation.
Because I think there is, I noticed this year, this is one of the first times in a while that, first time ever that our kiddos, and by this year, I mean last year, because it's almost Halloween again.
Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. That does not feel like a year ago. Okay. So last year was the first year that my kiddos went and did the trick-or-treat thing without us. Not driving around. They found a buddy and they ran around town and eventually they walked back eventually, which was really fun. We dropped them off. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And so Sonnet and I, for the first time, were just like, we have nothing to do but, I guess we did this like our first year married before Kai was born, but like we handed out candy. We sat at the end of our driveway and did that. And it feels a little bit to me like my Santa thing.
This is exactly where I was going to go with this.
That there's like you become.
Yes, part of the magic.
Yeah.
So I'm okay. I'm not kidding. I was sitting here thinking about exactly that. That I do think the reason to age out of it is you age into keeping the tradition going. And as an adult now, I am so devastated. Truly, like I have been so upset about the fact that where I live doesn't allow trick or treating because I so badly want to be giving out candy. Like I have waited. Dylan and I have never once in our marriage lived in a community that participates in trick-or-treating. The first apartment complex we lived in didn't. The second one didn't. Then the seminary doesn't. And now we're not even allowed to do it in the current place. Yeah, I think I have to because I want it to, but I want my house. I want to be the spooky, weird house on the corner that children are so excited to come to and they dare each other to go to because we got the weird sound moving things from Menards that you see.
And they got to walk through some kind of labyrinth to get to the candy.
Yes. And we have hot dogs and soda and candy, and we've made it a whole community thing. Like that, I want to be that house so bad. So, yes, I want to be the Santa of Halloween. I know where you were just going to
Last
say.
episode, Jackson talked about the Festival of Booths. So this week it's the Festival of
Booze.
There it is. Not with a Z.
I feel
not
the
booze,
need to name.
Not booze, to be clear.
Yeah, I feel the need to name for all you listeners, though. Our Santa conversation that we're listening is actually available on our Patreon.
Is this the end of the episode?
This is a nice segue into the end of the episode.
So here's the deal. If you want to hear conversations about things like Santa Claus and why that's really meaningful that I particularly brought it up.
Maddie was not on board.
No, I'm still not on the Santa.
I think this was a conversion moment.
Maybe.
This was even
I
evangelical.
understood the magic all of a sudden. But but everyone knows it's the adult giving the candy. That's not true because you're dressed up. Interesting. And the little child may think I actually got candy from
a witch.
All right. Interesting that that's acceptable to me. But anyways, if you're interested in that kind of conversation, you can find us on our Patreon.
Yep.
Yes, it's patreon.com/Wayfolk Arts. You can find all sorts of things over there, including early access to the shows and just the after show in general, which at the lowest tier of patronship, we want to be sure to give you that after show because it's fun. So we're going to be over there. Next week is when we'll post the after show for that over there for the patrons. Yep. And we'll be talking about a little bit more, leaning into some of the more like spooky, scary. Like, why is it important to engage in scary things sometimes?
Like, why is horror worth engaging? Which will be interesting because Maddie loves horror and I don't. So
yeah, there you go.
Come listen to us.
Is anyone surprised?
No.
This will be the Hannah Fights Maddie episode.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, that's what you really need to see.
That's on
Listen to.
Paper here?
All right, anyways.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. But also, as a reminder, you can find the ode that I read today and lots of other things that we create on Wayfolk Arts Facebook and Wayfolk Arts Instagram. Apparently there's a Twitter that I keep hearing that we have.
Or an X now.
Whatever it's called. I don't even know the password to our account, to be honest with you.
Maybe your phone does.
You know what? Don't worry about it. So Instagram and Facebook are cool. Come find us. Come interact with us. We also have a website. We want to hear from you. And a Discord channel. Wow, so many things.
Yeah.
The options are
They're
limited.
endless.
But there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Oh, they
You
are.
can probably find them in the description wherever you are.
They will be in the description.
They need to
of
go
this podcast.
work on their costumes. So
Yeah. Have fun. Happy spooky season.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.